Whenever I talk about my childhood, there's three things that I usually mention. The first, or that my mom usually mentions, the first is that I didn't smile a lot as a kid. The second is that I was an easy sleeper. And the third is that I would eat heads of whole raw broccoli. Now I would say 30 years later, all three are still pretty much true. Memories of my grandfather still make me smile. He was the first person to make me smile at about 2 months old. I can pretty much sleep anywhere. That was at a concert. And I mean anywhere. And I still like raw broccoli. Even though now I'd probably prefer maybe seasoned, a little salt, maybe sauteed. But even from a young age, food was a sense of joy. I would actually devour my mother's albondigas, which are these Cuban meatballs, with the same fervor I would consume episodes of Top Chef, Chopped, and anything with Gordon Ramsay yelling at someone. My second grade birthday party was even a cooking class, where all my friends and I decided to cook together. I wanted the bluest cake, and the bluest cake I received. I think my tongue was still blue a few days later, which is kind of hard to see with all the gaps in between my smile. However, as I became an adolescent, especially in the age of thin, chic, and cabbage food diets, it became a little bit trickier to be obsessed with food. Those same meals that I loved to watch on the television screen and consume were now replaced with boneless, skinless chicken breasts and 100-calorie packs and a lot of mustard. I was in middle school on a low-carb diet. Now, I stopped blaming my parents for this, though. I mean, it wasn't easy for them either, especially my mother, who had to deal with her 11-year-old crying in the dressing room because clothing that I wanted to wear to express myself didn't come in my size. I mean, Abercrombie and Fitch, yeah, right. I was 5'6" in the middle school, a student athlete, and I did not see bodies like mine in TV screens and magazines. And then, even though my relationship could be described through the Facebook status of, it's complicated, it did get a little bit easier when I became an adult. At the age of 22, I was accepted to the Teach for America cohort in Newark, New Jersey, a state I've never been to. So everything I knew about New Jersey was what I had seen on MTV's Jersey Shore. Yeah, exactly. Cake Boss and The Real Housewives of New Jersey. What I know about New Jerseyans is that they were intense, passionate, and loud. Needless to say, I had found my people. And even though I love New Jersey, being a first-year teacher is probably one of the hardest, most frustrating, most beautiful things a person can do. I mean, I would call my mom every Sunday at the idea of going into work on Monday, but by Monday, I mean, look how tired I was, for God's sakes. But by Monday, I was calling her to tell her about that funny thing that my student Bengali did, or how Mikael and Anaya would turn their classmates against me 1 second and then help me with their classmates the next, or how Michaela would change the world. For those of you who are curious, this is them now. Bengali wished me luck, by the way. And even though I did everything I could be to be the most available teacher I could be to my students, the reality of the situation was I was exhausted. I would go to sleep in my work clothes, wake up at 3 a.m., take a shower, and do it all over again the next day. But there was one thing I would do to help myself get through the week, and that was every Friday, I would order myself sushi, pour myself a glass of wine. Yes, I can drink, and so I would pour myself a glass of wine and would watch the latest episode of Real Housewives. And it was a great tradition until I started to really start paying attention to my credit card statements. And I thought, wow, sushi's so expensive. So I had to quickly switch gears. And so I started making my own. I would make sweet potato maki and avocado maki and cucumber maki. Nothing too fancy. Please remember, 22 years old, teacher, credit card debt. That's an example of one of mine. But it was not until the hardest of places that I realized food was really going to heal me. I was in a fight with a now ex-boyfriend, and instead of crying or doom scrolling on social media, I took my sneakers on, took my Charlie card, and went to Downtown Crossing, where I bought myself a singular Kate Spade plate, a cookbook, and a cast iron skillet. Went home, put my sneakers on, put my headphones in, and I began to cook. And my God, was it magical. I mean, the chicken was okay, But the idea of sauteing and putting my bouts of sorrow and frustration into my meal brought something out in me that day. I also learned the importance of taking care of a cast iron skillet. Now, if you've never taken care of a cast iron skillet, very high maintenance. My mom said she would never get one. But if you have to salt it, you have to season it, you can't soak it, it's a lot. But if you take care of a cast iron skillet, it can last you for generations. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put that love and care into myself that I did into my cast iron skillet. And what that chicken meal did for me that day continued to do years later. In the bouts in the pandemic, like so many of us, I felt anxious and alone. I didn't know what to do. And so my best friend Melissa and I decided to cook our way through Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking. We made it through 70 recipes. Okay, it wasn't the whole thing, but we did, and we learned a lot. We learned the importance of butter, right? We would stock the stove to make sure that our Beauvoir à la Orange or Bavarian cream did not deflate. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But I started to realize, like, I felt like that deflated Bavarian cream when I went back in person. I felt disconnected from my values. I felt separated from education. I didn't know what the next step in the recipe was. And I just didn't know what to do next. I would cry every Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. It was a lot. But I decided to give education one more shot, which is how I found myself at Beaver. And I could talk about ad nauseum about the wonderful things I love about Beaver, whether it's the amazing faculty or the beautiful facilities or, you know, the incredible students. But it was the opportunity to teach the literature of food class that saved me. And it was in this class that I was really connecting with my students, and we began to geek out on food, the language of fan favorite Fatima Ali's savor. We ate Parmigiano Reggiano in conjunction with some nosret, salt, fat, acid, heat. I even found myself applying and being accepted to the Culinary Institute of America's Food Sustainability Systems program. It was this amalgamation of different ingredients and situations that I realized that the culinary arts are an important ingredient to the recipe of, well, me. And so the theme of this year's talk is what lies under the surface. So many days we think what lies above the surface, right? The commute to work, a fight with a friend, the cost of eggs, am I right? But I challenge you to look what lies underneath. What makes your heart flutter? What makes your stomach turn? What makes you think, damn, I can't wait to do that again? And for educators, the answers to these questions can be really challenging, right? There's always an essay to grade, an email to send, and a lesson to plan. But I really want to make sure that we focus on these things as they are important. So, in thinking about the answers to these questions myself, I did what I have done in challenging situations in my adult life. I went to the cookbooks. And so many different cultures and cuisines, for those of you who do not know, there's some sort of base. In Spain, it's garlic, onions, and tomatoes. In Italian cooking, it's onions, celery, and carrots. In the Cajun kitchen, it's the holy trinity of celery, onions, and bell pepper, which is inspired by the French mirepoix. But for the Cuban household, the four most crucial ingredients are olive oil, onions, garlic, and green pepper, also known as the Cuban sofrito. And so, for those of you who do not know, I am an English teacher, so of course we have to talk symbolism. Let's break these different ingredients down in their larger connection. So, the first is the olive oil. This is your base. This is the thing that you're going to do to kind of set that foundation before the heat starts to turn up. Am I right? And the famous chef Alain Ducasse says that if you were to give the scent to his kitchen, it would be the savory scent of extra virgin olive oil. I tend to agree with Alain Ducasse. My kitchen smells the same. And so it's really to think about what is the thing that sets that foundation for you? What is the sense of calm before the storm? Is it going on a silent walk? Is it listening to a playlist? Is it, whatever, walking around? Whatever it is for you to kind of set that foundation for yourself. The second are the layers. These are your people. My people are my incredible parents who are watching. Hi. My beautiful sisters, my loving grandmother, my incredible uncles and aunts, my supportive friends, my loving boyfriend, and my amazing therapist, who is not photographed, but I thought that would be inappropriate, but she's amazing too. So it's important to keep connected to these different people in your life. They keep you grounded. They keep you honest to yourself and your values. And so it's important to connect with these people that are your layers. If you don't feel like you have those layers already, there's an opportunity to connect to your local organizations and networks. The third ingredient is the garlic. This is your health. And so taking care of your health is important. While looking at your passions is really important, you can't do so if you're not healthy. So book those doctor's appointments. In a kitchen, if you do not watch your garlic, it will burn. So watch your garlic, watch your health. Actually, famous Dr. Hippocampus would actually give Olympians and athletes during the Olympics garlic at the Olympics. So in between doctor's appointments, you can always gnaw on some raw garlic. The fourth and final ingredient is the green bell pepper. I like to call this the necessary evil. I hate green bell peppers. I will actually obliterate them in the food processor because I hate them so much, but I recognize the importance in developing the dish, especially for the Cuban sofrito. So sometimes you have to go outside of your comfort zone. Do things that you might not really think that you would want to do. A couple months ago, I went to my first bar class. It was a pretty painful experience, similar to how I feel when I eat a green bell pepper. But afterwards, I felt like I could conquer the world. And sometimes you have to do those things. You have to think about what are the things that you don't like, you do like. Give a TED Talk, for God's sakes, whatever kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. Okay? When you have all of these things together, you now have the Cuban sofrito. And the sky's the limit. You can make frijoles negros, which are black beans, picadillo, ropa vieja, anything you really want. And there might be moments where it might feel like an impossible task to perfect your meal. But in the end, experimentation is a key ingredient to the recipe of you. The core of who you are, the recipe for greatness to be developed. And if you're not sure where to start, I might be biased, but I would say to start with the Cuban sofrito to be your guide. So that's enough for the food metaphors. What do you think? Should we get started cooking? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.